trauma bonds. Something that is life-changing, something that is life-altering, and something that can change your actual mindset. Trauma bonds are something that are very hard to describe and something that is very hard to come to terms with. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my personal experience with having trauma bonds and how I have realised that they are an unhealthy bond with somebody and how I've decided to get out of those traumatic bonding situations. So let's go ahead and get started.
And trying to remain so strong, I know it's good if I'm alone. I got it, run.
For anyone who's new here, my name is Deanna and I am a YouTuber, well, aspiring YouTuber. I make content all about mental health, autism and just daily life in general. There is bound to be something on my channel, so if you are new here, then please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. And yeah, I appreciate every single one of you. What is a trauma bond? Trauma bonds are a traumatic event that happens, and it can sometimes be like an actual event, like a single event, or it can be a period of events such as a sexual assault, or it can be a friendship that has become toxic and has become like traumatic and you formed that bond. It can be a toxic relationship that has ended up in you staying together because you're trauma bonded to each other. And it can be numerous different things. However, knowing that and learning, I suppose, that this bond you've got with somebody is a trauma bond is quite hard to recognise and quite hard to see. But breaking free from a trauma bond is the most freeing thing in the world. I'm going to give an example of, and I'm going to probably just talk about it from a very like basic point of view, because I don't want to put anyone under the bus and I don't want to cause anyone to be angry at me for talking about a situation, even though it is also involving me. So these stories are going to be very like matter of fact, but also very like from my point of view, and I'm not going to be saying exactly who these people are. So I have person A, who is a member of my family, and I have never had necessarily a good relationship with this person. And this person in my family basically was somebody who was very prominent growing up. And this person was somebody who showed me a lot of love and affection to start off with. But as I grew up, this became something that was very sparse, and love and affection and care and attention became less and less as I grew up. I will say that even to this day, I'm unsure as to what changed, and I don't dwell on thinking about what changed or how it changed, or if it was something that I did that caused it to change, or if it's something that they did that caused it to change. I don't dwell on thinking about that because it's not productive. However, for the longest time, I kept this person in my life because even as an adult, I thought this bond was just a normal bond, and I thought they were just this person in my life and that was it. I just had to keep them in my life because they're family. However, I learned that is not the case. I learned that breaking free from the knowledge and the knowing that it's okay to remove somebody from your life or to go no contact with somebody is important. So if you feel like you are in a relationship, if you're in a friendship, if you've got someone in your family that you feel is toxic towards you, or you're fighting a lot more or whatever, you may have a trauma bond with that person. Having that space away from that person can be very insightful for you to understand whether you actually miss them, for one, whether it's more of a freeing response that you're getting, or whether it is something that you feel that you want to continue to have the space to continue to get the insights. For me, in the situation for person A, I decided to go a whole year, and it wasn't necessarily consciously me deciding it was going to be a year, but it ended up being just over a year, I think it was, that I went no contact, completely no contact with this person. And it gave me the insight that I felt more free without having this person in my life. And I felt more free knowing that I didn't have to message this person, I didn't have to see this person, and all this sort of stuff. Like, not having the almost like obligation to do all of those things helped me to realise that this person was not a positive person in my life, and to realise that I was trauma bonded to them because I felt like I had to have this bond with them. However, now I have slowly started integrating this person back into my life, but in a on my terms sort of basis. So I have very limited contact with this person. I will sometimes reply to their texts. I will sometimes message them. I will sometimes like talk to them. I will, all that sort of stuff. However, I would say that I will maybe message or talk to them from either side, whether it's me messaging them first or them messaging me first, about once a week, I would say, maybe once every other week. And the topics we talk about are very limited. So we're in a game together, we're in like a cohort together, and not just me and this other person, but me, this other person, and other people. And I'm in it for the other people more than this one person from my family. However, it means that this is one topic that may come up with our conversations. And that is pretty much all that comes up in our conversations. There may be the odd other thing, but we don't really have back and forth conversations for like more than about 5 or 10 minutes at a go. And that is kind of just how I'm happy with having it at the moment. But also, knowing that I don't have to respond straight away is also very freeing. And knowing that I don't have to always be on tap for this person is very freeing and very just freeing. I don't know how else to describe it. It's very freeing. I don't know what other word I could use to describe it. The second situation I want to use is person B. Person B was a friend. And person B was somebody that I loved with my whole heart. So this almost became toxic almost overnight. And I think a lot of that played down to the fact that I didn't want to realise and I didn't want to see the behaviours that were happening between us for what they were. And I didn't want to, or I didn't have the capacity to notice the things they were doing, and I didn't have the capacity to see that in hindsight the behaviours that they were doing towards me for like months were toxic, and the behaviours that were being exhibited by this person were not of a normal friend. I myself have not really had many friendships or relationships. That is something that I've always struggled to understand. Like if you ask me to define what a good friend is, I probably couldn't to like the same extent that somebody else could. That is because a lot of my friendships have ended, and a lot of people that I have thought have been good friends have either dropped me or have decided that they don't want to be friends with me, or they have, there's a lot of people that have just loved me and then left me. And that's not to get pity, and that's not to make it sound like woe me, because that's just a matter of fact. It is just facts that a lot of people have decided that they do not want to be friends with me anymore for whatever reason. But in this particular circumstance, not having this person in my life has been quite freeing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or anything like that. Not having this person in my life has been quite freeing. They played their part in my book, and they, were in it for the chapters that they were going to be in it. And I feel that I just feel that, I'm okay with the fact that it came to an end. And I'm okay with not having them in my life anymore. And that took a while to come to that, and this happened quite a while ago, but this, it took a while for me to actually fully understand that I was okay with them not being in my life. This can happen in relationships, as I said, this can happen in friendships, this can happen in pretty much any circumstance that you can think of when it involves you and another person. But knowing and learning to realise when a trauma bond is becoming a trauma bond and it's not just a healthy bond is important. Getting to know the warning signs, getting to know your own self, how you react in sort of sticky or toxic situations is very hard, but it is worth it. And yes, in the moment, it can be hard to see someone else's behaviours for like what they actually are. And in hindsight's a wonderful thing when you think about it, because in hindsight, I can look back on a lot of behaviours that either I've did or other people have done and be like, why did I do that? Or why were they doing that? And why did I let them do that? There's a lot of things that I can look at in hindsight and be like, wow. However, I am slowly learning to look at behaviours of others, and I hate to use the term be more skeptical, but But that is what it is. I'm being a bit more skeptical when it comes to people, and I'm being a bit more picky and choosy when it comes to the people that I have in my life, and I'm being a bit more like looking out for myself more than the other person, and being a bit more selfish. Like, I'm not a selfish person. I'm actually the most furthest thing from a selfish person. However, learning to be selfish is one of the hardest things I've had to do, because in my heart, if I had to either save me or somebody else, I would save somebody else if it was a case of having to choose. And learning to be more selfish and learning to be more, yeah, selfish is the word, but learning to look out for myself more has been such a hard thing to do. Yeah, it's been so worth it. And I'm learning every single day what is for me and what is for somebody else. Like, what I'm benefiting in a situation and what they're getting out of a situation. And knowing that friendships, relationships, in any sense, whether it be family, whether it be an actual friend, whether it be a romantic partner, need to be something that you are gaining as much as you are getting. And this can fluctuate on a day-to-day basis. However, knowing that overall you are getting as much as you are giving is the moral of it. You don't want it to be going months and years on end where you are giving so much to this particular partnership that you've got, and it can feel very isolating, very, very isolating, because your experience with another person is yours and yours alone, because your experience with another person is yours and yours alone. And although this person may also have another mutual friend that is friends with like both of you, it can be hard to like describe how you feel about that person, because one, you don't want the other person to be like, oh, I don't want to be friends with that person because of what you've said, but you also don't want to always tarnish another person's reputation. You may not like that person, but you don't want to chuck them under the mudslide. You don't want them to, to have a bad reputation, because you can see how they are a good person, but maybe not a good friend, or maybe not a good romantic partner for you. And that is very important to remember. This video has not been very long, but that is all I have to say today on trauma bonds, because trauma bonds are very individualised, and trauma bonds are always something that is individualised to you. But the things I want you to take away from this video is that trauma bonds can happen in any situation. Trauma bonds can happen without there being an isolated incident. It can happen in a friendship, a relationship, a partnership. It can happen in anything. It can happen with a family member. And to know that it's okay to say no, it's okay to say yes, it's okay to say, I'll think about it. And it's okay to give yourself space from somebody if you feel that you need that space in order to gain insight into how they are and what value they bring to your life. But that's it for today's video. Please don't forget that I believe in you, even if nobody else does, and I shall see you in my next one. Bye.
Just like you're young again, no, don't you cry. Just get back up again.